Our spirits cannot live without prayer, any more than our bodies can live without breathing. As I began seeking a spiritual life, I knew prayer was important, but still had many questions about it. What exactly is prayer? How do I do it? What is the right way to pray? Why do some kinds of prayer seem so different from each other? In the next few minutes, I'd like to lead you through some of the answers I have discovered in the hopes that something of my experience might show you an answer to your own questions, assure you in any trouble you might have had with prayer, and strengthen you in your faith. Prayer is lifting one's mind and heart to God. Our thoughts, our feelings, our desires, our fears, our joys and sorrows, even our very awareness, are some of the things we lift to God, that is, offer to Him. On the one hand, we lay ourselves bare, just as we are, without pretending anything of ourselves is hidden from Him. On the other hand, by lifting up our minds and hearts, we are illuminated or irradiated with the divine love that always transforms us. We hear God in prayer because it is there we allow Him to draw close to us, and in His closeness we can listen. Late at night, the boy Samuel hears himself addressed and says, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." It is the heart that prays. Just as we can fill the air with chatter and noise between us and other people, it is not outward appearances which determine how intimate our prayer is, but our heart's disposition. Just as we can understand a person but not love them, our intellectual knowledge is not essential to personal encounter with God. Intimate? Personal? Does this surprise us, that prayer must be these things? Maybe we hang on to the most pervasive confusion about prayer. Prayer is not something we do just to get it over with. Prayer is the life of the new heart. It ought to animate us at every moment. Prayer refers to the relationship between the person and God. The question, "How do I pray?" then becomes, "How is my life with God?" When we ask each other, "How is your prayer life?" we are not asking how many, how often, how loud, how many languages, or even how musical your prayers are. We are asking, how is your relationship with God? Is it comfortable, strained, easy, tense, demanding, awkward, peaceful, passionate? Prayer is where the relationship happens, where we slowly grow in understanding the divine lover who understands us perfectly, where the timeless one gives us the time we need to ease into intimacy. With all this talk about personal relationship with God, though, why so much emphasis on Our Fathers and Glory Bees? What's personal about the Rosary? Or what about the Mass? That's a bunch of people, not just me and God. And maybe we've noticed that serving others or time in nature brings a profound sense of closeness to God. Where do those fit in? What we have received from God is wisdom and experience, and yes, the enormous failings of the communion of saints. What has emerged from 2,000 years of inviting God into the massive screw-ups of human history is a sense that different people receive the grace to build up their relationship with the same unchanging God in different ways. The saints are all as unique as each of us, and common threads draw us to journey with them towards God. It is not that because we are all different, it does not matter what we do, since it all leads to God. Rather, it does matter what we do, because as each person follows their way into God's embrace, they leave a trail of light, which we may walk for a season or a moment on our journey. For many of us who feel lost, this is a great consolation. There are 4 saints in particular who have come to represent different approaches to prayer, inspired by the way they lived and the friends they made. If you love the puzzle of God, the intellectual challenge of trying to understand revealed divinity, or trying to reason out the great essential realities of human existence, such as virtue, beauty, grace, with your mind, it is likely you will find a Thomistic approach to prayer resonates with you. Named after St. Thomas Aquinas, who among other accomplishments began a Summa Theologica, a summary of all theology. For the person who emphasizes and invests heavily in personal relationships, the Augustinian approach to prayer may appeal. St. Augustine was a pivotal theologian of the early church, and much of his spiritual writing dealt with the dialogue and exchange between him and God. One of his phrases includes, "You have made us for yourself, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." Paying careful attention to one's own experience, both within and from without, is the hallmark of an Ignatian approach to prayer. St. Ignatius Loyola founded the Jesuit order and developed an entire method called the spiritual exercises, which help the participant find God in all things. Since God is everywhere and always trying to communicate with us, we look to that which is around us and discern God's presence. Finally, those who struggle to sit still for prayer can rejoice that there is a powerful Franciscan tradition of prayer in action. St. Francis of Assisi was a man of action who was also a man of prayer. Movement, nature, work, all can become prayer, a deep sense of God's dwelling in our bodies and in creation. Prayer might begin with a sense of obligation and no small amount of uncertainty, but for it to grow, it needs time, persistence, and ultimately a responsibility to this divine person with whom we are in relationship. One way to take responsibility is to seek and choose the ways of praying that speak to our hearts, that awaken the sometimes elusive sense of God's presence. And so we start now, today, wherever we are, with the best approach that turns our attention to the one who always holds us in mind. Step by step, we arrive at that place of eternal belonging in God's embrace.